What's going on, everybody? Today we are taking a look at the newest release from Heaven Hill Distillery and their Larceny barrel proof batch B525. Let me say this right away. In doing some quick tasting notes, we might have an outlier on our hands. Stick around. We're going to get into that right now here on the My Bourbon Journey Whiskey Review channel. All right, so as I mentioned, do we have an outlier? It's going to be kind of an interesting one going through this today, but I'll tell you what, we are talking again today about the Larceny Barrel Proof Batch B525. Some of the specs on this one, of course. So 117.4 proof, their standard mash bill, of course, everybody's fairly familiar with that. It is non-age stated, however, they mentioned that their barrels are typically anywhere from 6 to 8 years old on these, and a pretty friendly price point at $65. So let's not waste any time. Let's kind of dive right into this and see if my outlier prediction kind of comes true. So we're going to do a little comparison later on with the B524 to see maybe what a year kind of does for this whiskey. So. Boy, so the very first thing on this that I've gotten that was different than others is big oak, big spice, like right out of the gate. Not that really typical or standard kind of strawberry pastry note. This is a much more kind of savory kind of feel to this. Again, I had mentioned the big oak, big spice right away. Not nearly as much sweetness right away on this one. You still get those wheat notes that are there, so a little bit of like maybe even like a frosted, flakes, something along those lines. Yeah, just overall, it is a very savory nose, like very much on that oak, that spice-driven, the wheat grain that's there, maybe a little bit of like a vanilla custard, maybe some of those kind of caramel notes that are there. But it is very, very different. In my, I guess, opinion, it feels much different than really any of the more recent Larceny barrel proofs that I can kind of remember. And that's why I wanted to do a little bit of a comparison, to see what the difference of a year kind of makes. Yeah, it's almost, to be honest, it's really kind of coming across more on the nose as really a wheat whiskey, because of that richness, that kind of savoriness that a lot of the wheat whiskeys have, with some sweetness, of course. But this has, we'll see if it kind of translates over to the palate a little bit. But so far on the nose, think very, very savory on this one. Yeah, you do get a little bit of that kind of vanilla custard, like a spicy, maybe like a spicy sweet tea, something along those lines. But again, you're not losing any of those more, big oak, big spice, savory type of notes. All right, let's get into the palate and see exactly what this one's going to offer. Cheers. So yeah, right there on the basically second sip for me, what you guys didn't see is me take another one. But again, very much like the nose, it is very, very much on that savory side of things. Again, very oak driven, much more spice that's on this one. I know oftentimes people don't think you can get a lot of spice on wheated bourbons, but I'll tell you what, you really can. And this one is proving to that extent. So I'll also say this, in addition or on top of that savoriness, you pick up some of those like leathers, tobaccos. So it's a very dark, kind of deep, richer type of profile. And even really after that second sip that I had, still not a lot of that kind of typical strawberry kind of pastry note that's there. That was kind of what I was getting even when I sat down prior to doing today's review of some of the notes I was taking. I got a lot of that. It's kind of interesting that part of what we're all kind of accustomed to with the Larceny barrel proofs is really not there for me. We'll kind of dissect this thing a little bit more, see if as it sits and opens up a little bit, if maybe some of that fruit sweetness kind of starts to come out a little bit in this one. I'm going to kind of stick with where I was going with this in terms of that savoriness that's there. Again, I love the oak, love the spice, a little bit more of that kind of vanilla, custard, caramel notes kind of come out a little bit, but the spice lingers, the oak really kind of lingers. And that's why in my mind, it's just stayed very much in this savory category, basically. You're not getting a lot of the sweetness. And one of the things I was thinking with obviously this being a batched product, if we're dealing with more barrels that either have a little bit more age or were maybe pulled from a hotter area that had more oak influence, it's I don't want to say all but eliminated the sweetness, but there's definitely not as much there on the B525 as I remember there being on some of the prior batches. So it'll be interesting when I go back to the B524 to see exactly what this is versus this kind of new batch here that we've been talking about today. And again, a little bit of that, you know, I mentioned that vanilla custard, and maybe that's even coming through as more of like a frosted flakes, something like that, because there is still the wheatness that this has to it. You're not going to lose that really altogether. But, you know, in recent memory, like I mentioned, this thing just has all of those dark, deeper, kind of richer characteristics to it than it does that softer, more like sweeter strawberry pastry type of feel to it. This again, like I had mentioned, has much more of a wheat whiskey type of profile than I guess the other batches that I've really tried. So, you know, and really as it kind of sits on the palate, you know, thinking about what wheat whiskeys kind of have to offer, I don't know, maybe it's kind of interesting that we have something that is a little bit different, maybe a little bit of an outlier that's, again, different than some of the prior batches, because it did feel like a lot of the more, you know, recent batches were a lot of the kind of, you know, they were very similar. And then this, now we're kind of getting into, to me, a much different kind of profile that it has. Whether it continues to go in that direction, I don't know, or if it has something to do with different barrels, different ages, things along those lines. But it's just an interesting profile and kind of catches you a little bit off guard because of what it is that you're really expecting from the Larceny barrel proofs. All right, so let's take one more final sip and see if this gives us anything different than what we've been tasting. If it has anything else that's different, I'm going to say it's probably a little bit more of those kind of either brown sugars, you know, burnt caramel, something like that. But again, it's just staying very, very savory for the most part. So, you know, if that's something that is more intriguing to you, I think you're going to really enjoy what it is that the B525 has to offer. I'm kind of excited that it's a little bit different. You know, to me, like I said before, you know, they've kind of become very much the same. And again, as a batch product, oftentimes you kind of want that, you know, a little bit of a different proof on some of these, a little lower than some of the others at 117.4 proof. Some of the others have been a little bit higher in proof, but yeah, again, very different. I'm just going to stick with, you know, expect much more of a richer, deeper, more savory type of Larceny barrel proof. All right, so let's do a little quick comparison. This again is going to be the B524. I'm just going to taste it, see exactly what this is, just to give you a little bit of a baseline or a comparison as to how much different the new B525 is. So. I mean, to me, it's night and day. Much more of that kind of strawberry pastry. Again, still nice oak, nice spice. This has been, again, open for now over a year. But again, different profiles. Again, I think you've got a little bit more of, in these, a little bit more of a combo of the savory and decadent type of feel to it. Not as much as this. This is much richer, much darker, deeper kind of profile that it has, more of that savory than it is on the decadent side. But again, I like the fact that it's now different. And them blending these in, they had to know that this was going to be a little bit different than what some of the other ones have. So it'll be kind of interesting to see as other reviews kind of come out, how this kind of, I guess, ranks. It's again, for me, it's a pretty decent outlier amongst the standard profiles that we get oftentimes from the Larceny barrel proof. So again, with like one quick sip before, I'm already getting a much different kind of profile that it has. Yeah, more on the B524. Again, much more of that strawberry pastry, still nice oak, great spice. That's one thing that I think is nice about a lot of the Larcenys. They do kind of maintain or are very consistent with that spice factor, which for me always helps lengthen the finish with some of these things. But again, B525, much more savory, darker, heavier notes in terms of oak, spice, leathers, tobaccos than you do with this. You're getting a little bit more of that sweetness up front that I just wasn't really getting with this. So from that standpoint, I'm kind of digging the fact that it's now a little bit different, or the B525, I should say, is different. So there you have it. I'll be interested to hear kind of your thoughts on this. So once you get into it and you try it, come back, let me know your thoughts overall, if indeed the B525 had a bit of a different profile, was maybe the outlier that I'm kind of mentioning here today. So that'll be interesting to hear your perspective as well on these. So, I mean, really thinking back, even the B524, I mean, it was a nice little bottle, but this just completely different. So I want you to be aware of that when you're kind of going into this, that I wouldn't expect a lot of the same. I would definitely expect outlier, something a little bit different, and maybe that's a little bit more intriguing to you. Thank you again, guys, for tuning in today. Greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to follow me, you can on Facebook and Instagram, those places at My Bourbon Journey. If you'd like to help support the channel and become part of the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club, make sure you check out that Patreon link in the description below. That down there with a lot of other great things for you as well. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate it. And as always, it's about the journey and not the destination. Cheers. We'll see you next time.
I've been feeling myself, I've been trying to keep it all on track. I could tell you took your time, I've been thumbing through your gram like that. Bring my energy back, girl, you're something like the sunlight. Girl, you're something like the sunshine.